Hi, I'm Life Coach Landry, and the topic is all the relationship advice you'll ever need. Okay, I'm going to cover some really broad stroke topics here. These are the things you should concentrate on if you want to think about your fundamental of your relationship and how it's going, and if you should stay in it. Which, if you're reading this, you probably should. But I got an email here from subscriber Michelle D. She says, "Hey, Coach, love your videos. Been watching them a lot lately, and I've actually written you before, but I have a question for you. Me and my man have been talking for about 3.5 years, but in the last 6 months, things have been really rough and things have been really different. And we really don't know why. And we both talked about it last night. So I decided to write you in and say, let's get some advice from somebody else." Okay, great. Here's the deal. I'm going to go through some things here that address this specifically. But first of all, if the world was coming to an end, who would you want to be with? If you were in the hospital, who do you want sitting at your side? If you were in the worst circumstance and you had a major breakdown, where would you drive your car to? So what house, and open the front door and want to give a kiss and a hug to immediately? Whoever that person is, that is who you're supposed to be with. Okay? That is who you're supposed to be with. Just FYI. And so, Michelle, that should cut through that. I mean, if that's both what you do for each other, that answers your question right now. But number one would be together for the right reasons. And what do I mean by that is for the things I just said. Be together because in the end of the day, you simply just enjoy being around them. If you love being around them, that is who you're supposed to be with, okay? The number one complaint by women is being around men who they find unintelligent. That's usually the biggest turnoff. It eventually leads to fights that don't make sense. And then it leads to fights where you're with a man you end up not respecting. So it sounds like, and there's more to her email, but it sounds like this guy is intelligent. You do love him and you do want to be with him. So be together for the right reasons. Before, you go out for advice is think about, you don't want pressure from friends and family to be with any specific person. If they tell you to be with someone, it's usually the wrong person. Just FYI. Pressure from family and friends is usually lining somebody up who's actually not for you. Feeling like a loser because, they were single and the first person that came along, being together for image, being young and naive, going back to a relationship that was over. I usually say if a relationship was longer than 5 years and it ended, it's probably not worth going back to again, because that's a long time to really make sure everything's going to work. And if it failed, it's, I think it's like 99.7% likely chance fail again. Which leads me to number two. Have realistic expectations about romance and relationships and the relationship that you want. Okay. You need to tell the person, what you're looking for and what you want. Even if you've been dating 3 years, reestablish it, because you may find that person's not quite in line with that, or they may be totally willing to get in line with that, but they need to talk about it. And remember, 2 to 3 conversations on this. This isn't a 10-minute thing. This isn't a 15-minute thing. Talk about these things for a little while. Okay. You're absolutely not going to be gaga about each other every day. Okay. Relationships get annoying sometimes, and sometimes they're hurtful. Okay. And when they're hurtful, that just means that you care. That doesn't mean that you walk away from the relationship. You're absolutely not going to be gaga. And all this happily ever after bullshit that you've read in books and whatnot, bullshit. Love takes work, and love has pain in it. And usually the reason you feel the pain is because it's who you want to be with. And that's why you feel the pain. And you feel the pain almost like you're mad at them. Okay? When you're mad at somebody for having hurt you, that usually means you love them. Okay? And you're in love with them. When you don't care when they hurt you, you're like, F you, I'm out. It's because you're not in love. Okay? So be realistic. Set those expectations. Love is a funny thing. In ancient times, they considered it a sickness, because they'd be like, why do I hurt? And why am I letting someone hurt me? But I love them so much. So in ancient times, in Greek writings and whatnot, they talked about how it was a sickness. That's because love can take you to a high and take you to a low. It's supposed to. That means you're in a relationship that you actually care about. As long as it's healthy and doesn't have any drinking or physical abuse, or people being manipulative, or people trying to hold leverage over you when you don't give them certain things, things like that. But true love is deep, abiding. It's impervious to emotional whims and fancies, because you always end up coming back from it. Remember, the best couples are realistic and they rebound from things. They don't sit there and dwell in them all day. They talk to each other. Number three, the most important factor in a relationship is communication and respect. Communication is number one. I mean, we've established that throughout time. That should not be rocket science to you. You always want to communicate. You always want to know what's going on. A good example of that would be, if something in your head, or, some people are overthinkers. And when you're overthinkers, you need to communicate that. Flush it out. Don't sit on your own. Don't wait for them to come to you. Talk to them about it, okay? What I can tell you is the number one thing that's most important is there's sexual attraction, there's respect, there's communication, shared goals, religion, lack of, and then there's love. But in the end, it's really communication and respect. Does that mean communication won't fall from time to time, where you might not communicate, where someone feels hurt and they pull back? Does it mean that respect, sometimes you don't say hurtful things or get angry and upset and bad things come out? That's fine. That's normal. As long as you rebound from it, it's okay. Okay, so remember that, and that will help you. And that takes me to my next point, number 5. Talk openly about everything, okay? Don't wait on the other person to talk to you about it. Talk openly. What you'll know is you'll open them up to talk openly about everything with you, okay? You never know, especially the stuff that hurts. You never know if someone's going through a stressful time that has nothing to do with you. So you might have to open them up. Even if you've talked about everything in the past, you may be in an area where you need to bring that back out of them because they're mentally somewhere else. Relationships require work, okay? Just don't ever let that go. We always talk about what's bothering us with each other, not anyone else. You should talk about other things that bother you besides just your relationship. You should be talking to each other about everything. I like to go for walks when I need to talk. It helps. It's therapeutic. I'm getting exercise. I'm thinking. I'm feeling good about my body. I'm feeling good about talking with them. They're there with me. That makes me feel good. Time is one of my love languages. That's time. It's quality time with each other. Recently, on a personal note, I went through something with a girl where, she was basically someone I told, hey, I need to take some time to myself to think about things. It was just a couple of days. And I called her during the week to let her know or make her feel, hey, I'm still right here. And I didn't talk about the relationship on the phone with her when I called her. And that was on purpose because I wanted to talk about substance in person. So I kept the conversation on the phone, more about life and, what's going on with me and just funny stuff or what she's up to and how she's feeling, yada, yada, yada. A lot of people might want to hear about the relationship when they call on the phone, like, hey, I need to hear you tell me you're sorry. You want to be with me? Wrong place. You want to do that in person. And, eventually you should feel like I did. Like I took a couple of days and I just thought about it. I love my relationship with her. I want it to blossom. It needs some more nutrients right now, kind of thing is the way you got to think about it. And I feel that, in my heart that she was irreplaceable. And that's how you should feel because that means that's who you love and who you're supposed to be with. Okay. The next one would be, a healthy relationship means two healthy individuals. Understand that it's up to you to make yourself happy. I think everybody pretty much gets that in modern day. It's not the job of who you're with to make you happy, right? But you don't want to abandon them because you're unhappy, right? You want to still be with them. What you want to do is get them in a place where they can support you, and you have to be an effective communicator to get proper support. If you're an ineffective communicator, you're going to notice the person you love. You're going to feel like you're not getting, conversation from them and stuff that you want, and that's going to bother you. But usually it's a byproduct of one person, not two people at the same time. A lot is made about sacrifices in relationships. You're supposed to keep the relationship happy by constantly sacrificing. But the problem is when all the relationship happiness is contingent on one person having to keep pulling the weight. The girl I was talking about, I went through a lot with that woman in her life. And I, a lot of times got the burnt end of the stick with her, but I still stuck through it with her because in the end, I saw what we were worth. I saw our potential, and the long term was more important to me than the short term. And I loved her. And then that's what matters a lot, right? So you want to do that, and you don't want a shitty codependent relationship. What you want is someone that you admire and you adore. And when you call them, you feel intelligence and humor, right? And it leads me into my next one, give each other space. Okay, sometimes you do need a couple of days to a week. Don't take longer than that because you'll be sending the wrong signal to the relationship. But sometimes we get in moments where we have to, as humans, we have to step back and breathe and recatch. And like when I took my space from the person that I love, it was for me to, I rejuvenated. It wasn't, oh, now that they're not around, I'm happier. No, it was, I thought about better things about us. I was able to think about things that I could tell she was concerned with. So it gave me the opportunity to focus. Okay. So taking space, look at it as a time to focus, not just on yourself, but on the good things that made you fall in love in the first place. And that maybe if you're in a rough patch, it gives you the ability to put the energy into working on getting those back where they need to be. Okay. Number 7, you and your partner will grow and change, in ways that are unexpected. You need to embrace that. Okay. There are some people that I call small town thinkers. They can't think outside of that box. You need to be ready for change. Change is going to happen. Life is going to unfold, and you want to go through that together. Okay. Over the course of 20 years of talking to friends and, face and political parties and numerous hair color styles and all that stuff, the biggest thing that keeps a strong relationship is not giving a fuck about what anybody says and about your relationship, and just loving your relationship. Okay. Not worrying about outside factors and what people have opinions on. Okay. And my next one is, and this is my favorite one, and this should be practiced, and this does take a little bit of understanding, but once you get it down, this will be the most beneficial thing to your relationship. Guarantee it. Get good at fighting. I know that sounds crazy, but the relationship is a living, breathing thing. Okay. Much like body muscles, it has to go through stress, feel strained out in order to get stronger in a lot of ways. Good couples fight, rebound, have good happiness strides, and then they'll get in a fight and they'll rebound. Fights are aligning of relationships. Okay. And as long as you want to be in that relationship and they want to be in it, then fights are a good thing. Okay. Don't shy away from them. It's just one of those things where if defensiveness, basically blaming, shifting, I wouldn't have done that if you weren't yada all the time, or you make me feel, well, that's personal. When someone does something, if that's making you say you make me feel, that's you talking. That doesn't mean you're not in love with them anymore. That just means you need to work on yourself while being in love with them. If stonewalling, withdrawing from an argument, or ignoring your partner, or when they reach out to you to talk about things, like me, I needed a couple of days. I wasn't ignoring, and I made sure I called them to remind them, hey, I'm not gone. I'm right here. But if when you take your time and you go back and they disappear on you, well, that's going to make you say, I feel ignored. I feel like you don't love me anymore. Well, if that's not the signal you want to send, don't send that signal. Okay. Some basics about that is never insult or name call if you can avoid it. Don't bring up previous fights or arguments. Stick to the one that you're currently on, or you're going to have a snowball, and you're going to be sitting there saying, I can't do all this at one time. Let's tackle what we really want to solve here. One fire, I call it the house on fire, one room at a time, not the whole house. Okay. If things get too heated, take a breath. It's okay to take a day or two off from each other. It's okay. Okay. Typically, if you're a working couple, this is your work time when you're both at work. Okay. Remember that being right is not as important as both people feeling respected and heard. That is more important. If you're a man who constantly cuts a woman off when she's trying to make her point, you're being disrespectful, and that makes you a disrespectful man. You must be open to hearing them talk. If she's cutting you off while you're talking, she needs to get a grip. She needs to understand that you have things to say too. They're just as important as what she has, and both need to be valued. Now, like I said, it's good when you talk, when you're a good listener, to exchange, ebb and flow of information about every 5 minutes. You don't want to sit there and talk for 20 minutes. Okay. Because when an argument is over, it's over. Some couples went as far as to make it a golden rule in a relationship that when you're done with the fight, we don't bring that up again. We only talk about new stuff. There's no scoreboard in relationships. Big emphasis. There is no scoreboard. Okay. It's real simple. Do you love being around that person or not? Okay. If you do, then there is no scoreboard. Okay. When your partner screws up, separate the intentions from the behavior. Okay. Sometimes it's just they need to take a break, or their brain short circuits, or they get overloaded and they just need to pull back for a couple of days to regather themselves. Or it's, just something that happened to them outside of y'all that caused stress. And so because of that stress, they handle things with you two differently than they normally would. Separate the intention from the behavior. People that have bad intentions are people that use leverage over you. Like, if you do this, I'm going to do this. People who do that, they might love you, but they don't love you right. And they're probably not right for you because they possess that kind of thinking in the first place. Okay, number 10, the little things, or not number 10, but the little things that add up to big things, if I'm on number 10. Out of everything I've ever talked to with people in my life and everything I've ever seen, it's don't sweat small things. Just know what small things really matter. There are small things that you need to put together and go, hey, I'm gonna put that in my list of. I probably need to talk to them about that. When you get 2 or 3 little small things, talk about that, okay? Because that's not one big thing. It's 3 little small things. That way, you're making some progress in that direction, and you'll feel a little better about it. It's as simple as saying "I love you." Like me, I'm a big fan of dancing in the kitchen with a girl I love. Have a little moment of dancing. It does wonders. And don't do it because it makes them think about you. Do it because you want to do it. The girl I'm dating, there's a place we have around here called Enchanted Gardens, and it's cooling off right now. It's October, but this is during the heat of the summer. We were outside, and this part's like a wooded shed part, and I just wanted to dance with her. And I did that. We danced for 5 minutes, 3-5 minutes right there on the porch, and it was hot as it could be, like a volcano. And now, I think about it, I'm like, I'd like to go do that again because it's nice and cool, it'd be even better. But the point is that, if you're going to be sweating small things sometimes, be sure to take into account the little things that are good as well. Okay. Number 11, I have these bullet pointed. Number 11, sex matters a lot. Okay. And if you know that you and her are slipping in sex, you better check that. Does that mean that from time to time you won't feel different during sex? Absolutely not. There are times where sex will not feel the same. The emotion will be taken out of it, or it'll be mechanical, or it'll be behavioral, or it'll be routine, or it'll be intimate. The reason it goes like that is because as a couple, you're constantly shedding skin of emotion, right? Sometimes you're fighting before you have sex. Sometimes you're in love before you have sex. Sometimes it's makeup sex. Sometimes it's random sex, but you have something on your mind so you don't feel the same about the sex. Don't let that make you sweat that you're in love with somebody. You're still in love with them. That's a situational sexual problem. I'm talking about if you're not having physical intimacy at all. Okay? Like every time the girl I love and she comes over and she comes on the door, like I am so happy to smell her scent, see her eyes, see her smile, give her a kiss. And we're going to eventually sit down and watch a movie and start talking, or go sit out by the pool, or go walking at the lakes, whatever it is that we're going to do. The point is, I want to do it with her. And that's how you should feel. And that leads to intimate sex eventually. Now, maybe during the day you say something you didn't know hurt her feelings. She says something that hurts his feelings and she didn't know it. So sex is a little off that night. Or you're just in a bad rut where the last month or two have just been rough. So sex has felt a little off. You will rebound from that. Okay. Don't let that push you out of a relationship. Just know that intimate sex is vitally important. You should be having sex every other day, either orally, intimately, or, kisses, passionate stuff. There should be a hug and a smile. Those things make up, and they eventually lead to being physically intimate. If you're just going through the walks of life, well, that's not going to get you anywhere. Okay. Number 12, since I'm numbering things, one of the most important ones is you need to sit around and think about this with each other. Some couples tackle in the beginning, but be practical and create relationship rules. Okay. All research shows that when couples have an understanding of expectations and rules, the fights diminish by 80%. That's huge. Okay. And the reason that is because there are some couples who naturally get along and get together, right? There's always a natural part of the relationship where, look, I love you. I'm going to do this. You're going to go do that, whatnot. But at some point, say those things. Say what it is. And if you're a person that feels threatened when you're expected to do something, then you have issues with yourself. That isn't relationships or the person you're with. Now, if they're unrealistic and they're like, hey, I want you to go out and wash my car every day and put 2 coats of wax on it, that's totally different. I'm talking about if you're a man and a woman, you live in a house, and she makes the bed better than you do, so you want her to make the bed. The girl I'm dating, she always makes the bed when I don't even think about it, and I'm always very appreciative of it. And she's more about being on top of dishes than I am, so those roles kind of naturally fell in place. I like to mow the lawn. I like to weed eat. I like to go make sure the ant beds are killed. I like to make sure if there's a leak, which I still have one in my house I need to fix, but if there's something like that, like I'm all over it. Now, granted, she might want to help in those things, but the point is I feel it's up in front my priority to do it. as, she looks in a kitchen and sees, oh, you got some laundry in the thing that needs to get put away. You got some dishes, natural roles. Now, at some point you want to say, are these the roles we're happy with? And if they are, let's make these kind of the standard thing. Relationships are a balance. Okay. There is no such thing as 50-50. Let me make that really clear. 50-50 is a joke. It's an unrealistic expectation. And it has broken up many couples for all the wrong reasons. Okay. 50-50 doesn't exist. What does exist is compatibility and balance. Okay. Balance is, if you do this, I'm doing that. We both love each other. We don't see it as like you're asking me or making me do this. You shouldn't feel like that. That's you looking at yourself. That's a self-esteem thing when you think like that. Okay. But leads me to my last point. And this is probably the most important one besides get good at fighting, is learn to ride the waves. Sometimes these waves last a month or two. Sometimes they last a day. Sometimes they last an hour. If you're in love, and like I said, what is love? In the very beginning, I said, if you were in the hospital, who do you want by your bed? If shit hit the fan, what door are you going to go knock on and think that you're going to get a hug and a kiss and get right back to romance? Who is that? Not who would do it, because there are lots of people that would take you in if something happened. Who do you want? Who comes to your mind? What face pops up? Because that person is the one who would ride the waves for you. Like, I went through a lot, like I said, with the girl I was dating. She went through some very personal things, and I'm not going to name them all, but she went through some very personal things, and I was there, through it all, and with no leverage. I was there to be whatever I could, because in my heart, that's who I wanted to be with. That's who I love. That's who I admire. That's who I adore. And because of that. Now, does that mean we never fought or had moments? Of course we did. That's how relationships get aligned. Did it mean we didn't have moments where we thought it was coming to an end? Of course it did. All relationships do. But it never really did, because we kept coming back. That showed the fight in us, and that is what's most important. And what's important is that when you get in a fight, understand you're going to feel vulnerable. You're going to feel a little raw. That means you love them, okay? If being vulnerable makes you run from them, you need to learn to deal with that, because you're going to run from the person you love. So don't do that, okay? So learning to ride the waves is a big deal. One of the hundreds analogies that are out there with stuff is, I had a nurse email me saying she used to work with a lot of geriatric style patients and whatnot in their 80s about marriage, and their relationships, they would say, would work in waves and whatnot. Not that they ever fell out of love with them, but that, there were ups and downs and ebbs and flows about it. But one thing that, they would always say is that the key to understanding was kind of, couples relocate, couples switch careers. Couples can lose a lot of money. Couples can have no money. Couples can have money. It's important that when these things happen, that you're both saying, hey, I know this happened. Well, let's get back on top of it, or, hey, I know you lost your job, but hey, we got kids, we got goals. Let's get back on top of it. Or, hey, I got a job offer to move to this state for this job. We'd make a lot more money. I know you love your job. What do you think? Like, these are big things that you're going to go through. And those are called progressive couples. Okay. Progressive couples are couples who understand they are going to grow and things are going to change, but they're willing to go through it together. Okay. And what's important is that when you set these goals, that you really, really get behind them. Okay. So I hope this information was helpful. This is a lot of stuff to take in, and there's a lot more detail to it. And of course I do separate videos on more detailed specific items. But look, if you love somebody, don't walk past them and not let them know. Tell them. Don't let days go by where they don't know you love them. Let them know. Okay. And as soon as you see them, it should be a smile and a kiss. At some point, no matter how mad you are, upset you are with somebody, or think they hurt you, if you love them, you're going to want them back. So why wait? Make it happen. Okay. Hope this information was helpful, and I will talk to you soon.